We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So maybe you have been dependent on caffeine, or maybe you have been dependent on nicotine. The idea or the complacency that you've done so good this far so you can slow up. Hello and welcome to the Bears and Lions podcast. If you're brand new here, hit that like and subscribe button. If you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, hit that follow button and rate the podcast 5 stars. It would mean the absolute world to me. If you are a returning listener, welcome back in. It's so good to see you and thank you so much for coming back here. I just want to say happy 4th of July. That is what we're talking about. It's Independence Day and the things that we are dependent on. I really hope that if you are traveling, that you have safe travels. I hope that your long weekend, if you have one, is extremely amazing. I hope you'll give this podcast a listen. Be challenged, be safe, and I'll see you on the other side. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Happy 4th of July. It is Independence Day here in the United States, and honestly, it's a special day. On July 4th, 1776, the 13 colonies declared their independence from the King of Britain and formed what is now the United States of America. That is a part of the Declaration of Independence, that old piece of paper that Nicolas Cage stole in National Treasure. It is a beautiful writing of a group of men who came together and said, this is difficult, but we're signing essentially a death warrant. They were signing a death warrant when they completed the Declaration of Independence, because it was saying that we are going to be committing treason against the King of Britain, and we're going to do our own thing. I thought that this would be a perfect opportunity, especially with today being the 4th of July, to talk about independence and declaring your independence. Now, it's I would say most of us have some form of dependence. Maybe we have kids, so we have dependence in that sense. Or maybe we have jobs, and so we are the dependents, right? We're dependents in the job. If we don't do the job, somebody else will. And there may be business owners where everybody depends on you. You may be a CEO and the entire company depends on you. You may be the leader of your family, a father or a mother. Everybody depends on you. And so we all have these poles of responsibilities that we have to take care of. What I think we can walk away from on the 4th of July and what I just read is these truths we hold these truths to be self-evident. It's evident to us that this is a natural calling to take responsibility, to do what is right and what is most likely to affect the safety and happiness of our lives. That's what these words say. I love that it says that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So you may be on this pursuit of happiness. You may be on the grind. You may be working towards something, but there are certain things that you are dependent on that are healthy, and then there are certain things that you're dependent on that are unhealthy. And so I just want to see what's something that you are dependent on right now. If you were just to think of the first thing that comes to mind and you're like, I have no idea, Kyle, what are you talking about? Okay, coffee or caffeine. That's a dependent. That is something that I have a little bit of caffeine every single day. I don't overdo it, and I used to be fully dependent. We're talking I would pound an energy drink in the morning, an energy drink in the afternoon, or like early afternoon, and then an energy drink at the end of the day just to get through it all. I would literally pound energy drink after energy drink, and it just wasn't healthy. I was ingesting so much caffeine, but caffeine is one of those things that we become dependent on. It's a drug that we become very dependent on. And some people don't even realize how dependent they are because they're just ingesting things, right? Oh, I just drink coffee. I don't drink any energy drinks. I just drink coffee. Okay. How many cups of coffee? Because I know some people who can put down 4 or 5 cups of coffee and it's not even 11 o'clock in the morning. So that equals 2-3 energy drinks right there. I mean, depending on the energy drink, but usually that would mean at least 2 energy drinks if you're drinking 4 or 5 cups of coffee. So it adds up. So maybe you're dependent on coffee. Maybe you are one of those people who really just likes nicotine. Maybe you vape, or maybe you smoke cigarettes. I see less and less people smoking cigarettes, actually. But I do see a lot of people that still vape. I see a lot of people that still ingest nicotine. Zins are a big thing. So nicotine from the Zin pouches. Maybe nicotine is something that you're dependent on. Marijuana. I think a lot of people smoke casually right now, especially with the legalization of marijuana. A lot more people are just casually smokers as far as smoking weed, and maybe they're not always smoking it. Sometimes it's edibles. So just ingesting any type of THC or DMT, even CBD in a way. CBD, they've done studies, so it's not as damaging. In fact, there's some good qualities to it as well, but DMT and THC both have different impacts on your blood and impacts on your body. So maybe that's something that you're dependent on. You can't get through the day without it. I would even go through a step of a stimulant of any kind. So Adderall or Adderall or some form of, you may not have a full-on diagnosis of ADHD, or you may have a slight ADHD or ADD diagnosis, so you do have a little bit of Adderall, but then you find yourself taking it maybe more than you need, and you recognize that this is just something that you really feel like you should be taking, or you need to take it. You feel like you have to take it in order to function. I know many people who cannot function without certain things. Maybe you're just dependent upon a routine to the point of your day is shot if you don't follow your morning routine or your nightly routine. So even a routine can be there. I'm going to hit one that's really hard as well. And this is one that I've had to fight many, many times, is junk food. Maybe you're dependent on junk food, and not just, oh, I don't really eat junk food. Okay, but you DoorDash 3-4 times a week. You order, food that is very unhealthy in the quantities that you're ordering. Oh, I get a pizza, every Friday or whatever. Yeah, but you eat the entire pizza in one sitting. You eat the pizza over the course of 24 hours. You eat half on Friday and half on Saturday, things like that. These are things that I used to do. I'm not judging anybody that does it, but maybe you're dependent on those type of things. Maybe you're dependent on every day you got to have a drink, or maybe you're dependent on alcohol, and you don't think about it, but you definitely, you feel after work, you're like, man, I need a drink. If you say, man, I need a drink, and you have that gut feeling, I'm going to tell you, you're probably dependent on some way, shape, or form of the cortisol that is secreted whenever you are drinking alcohol. These are all things that are impactful. They're impactful in the way that we hold on to them, where they're impactful when we go through withdrawals. Sugar can be a dependent. I depend on my sweets. I depend on the sugar. And then all of a sudden you go through a withdrawal and it's super hard. I think in a lot of ways, what we can learn from the Declaration of Independence and what we can learn from the founding fathers that committed treason when they signed the Declaration of Independence is they knew that things were about to change. We are halfway through this year now, and we know that there are some things that have to change. Maybe you started the year off with a idea or a resolution that you are going to do something specific and you haven't quite gotten to the checkpoint marks that you wanted to. And so now is that time where you know something has to change if you want to complete this in 2024. Maybe you wanted to start training for a marathon or something along those lines. So maybe you wanted to write a book. Maybe you wanted to start a podcast. Maybe you wanted to just read more or work out more or change your sleep habits, whatever that might be for you. Change your diet. You have to understand that something is going to change. Maybe you've been doing it. Excellent. Which means the next half of the year is just continuing to do what you're doing. So signing this declaration is saying, I already know that this is putting everything that I want now on hold and saying, I want it then. So I'm going to keep working towards all of these things and I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing now. Even though it's hard, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing now because I know that later I will be thankful. I know that 6 months down the road in 2025, I'll have different goals because I've kept to these, and the consistency is going to build that strength because you were not dependent on certain stimulants or certain drugs or Ozempic, or you weren't dependent on alcohol or cigarettes or nicotine or caffeine or marijuana or junk food. You weren't dependent on those things because you recognized that I'm going to do the hard thing. And I think that as we go through the rest of this year, we have this great opportunity to remind ourselves, and this is a perfect time. So let this 4th of July be a reminder that you have the power to declare independence from all of the unhealthy things that you depend on. So maybe you have been dependent on caffeine, or maybe you have been dependent on nicotine. Now is your chance. Just like this is a snippet from the Declaration of Independence that's changed for the unhealthy things that we have. But whenever any form of dependency becomes destructive of these ends, it is your right to alter or to abolish it and to institute new, healthier lifestyle upon the foundation of good habits and healthy relationships. Now, I changed that a little bit, but sign that sucker. July 4th, 2024, I am instituting a new, healthier lifestyle upon the foundation of good habits and healthy relationships. I believe in us. I believe in you. I truly think that 2024 is this year that's shifting a lot of people's mindset, and it's changing a lot of people. They're having a mind shift. To quote Erwin McManus from his book, but there's a mind shift that's happening where I'm seeing it in droves, not one, not two, not three, but I'm talking like 6 out of 10 people that I know are starting to shift their mentality from what it once was during COVID to now a growth mentality of I'm ready to plant some seeds, I'm ready to water them, and I'm ready to see them sprout, but I'm going to put in the work that it takes. So as we get to this last half, I remember Super Bowl 48. I don't know if you remember Super Bowl 48. That was 2014. It was the Denver Broncos versus the Seattle Seahawks. And the Seattle Seahawks absolutely obliterated the Broncos. I think it was like 48-8 or something like that, 43-8 at the end of the game. It was rough. At the end of halftime, the Seahawks were up 22-0. Now, you may be halfway through 2024 feeling like you're up 22-0, but that doesn't mean that you stop, right? You could completely lay back down and say, you know what? I've done a great job in the first half. I'm just going to glide through the rest of the game. And then in 2025, you're going to have the same resolutions and you're going to wonder why you haven't made the changes or they haven't stuck. The changes haven't stuck. Now is the opportunity for you to really knuckle down. Maybe you started this year off and you're struggling and you feel more like the Denver Broncos where life is at 22 and you are at 0. Now is your opportunity to change the momentum into your favor, to start the third quarter of this year and change your mentality and just say, you know what, we're going to change the momentum. We're going to make some changes. We're going to declare independence from these things. We're not going to be dependent on the things that are unhealthy. We're not going to be dependent on Netflixing and relaxing and having all this me time that you're really not doing anything productive or anything that's healthy or helpful for you. Now, I'm not saying you cut it all out. Calm down. I'm not saying you cut it all out, but I'm saying at least recognize that you can make some changes. Maybe you came into this halfway point of the year where you're tied. It's like 0-0 or 22-22. Wherever you're at, you feel like, man, I'm so close, but I still kind of dip both ways. And so it's tied up, and it's now your opportunity to change the momentum a little bit where you overtake the lead and then you grow that lead as you go. Because one of the beautiful things about Super Bowl 48 was the second half started, and 22 points is not impossible to come back from. We've seen it happen quite a bit. However, the Seahawks got the ball at the start of the third quarter, and all the Broncos needed to do was make a good stop, and then at least get one touchdown, and then they'd be able to come back. But instead, there was a certain speed demon that took kickoffs for the Seahawks named Percy Harvin, and Percy Harvin took the opening kickoff of the third quarter for the Seahawks, took 87 yards to the to a touchdown, and made it 29-0. So any momentum that the Denver Broncos thought they were going to have, out the window. And the Seahawks just went on to finish that game. They had a commanding lead the rest of the way, in fact, the entire game. So maybe you're that person who feels like, yeah, we're up 22-0. Let's just glide the rest of the way. No, Percy Harvin that. Just run it back. Keep scoring. Keep going. Don't let the idea or the complacency that you've done so good this far so you can slow up. Don't let that set in, because then you'll be right back at that same spot in January of 2025. We are kicking off the second half of this year, and some of us have made great progress. Some of us, we've kept ourselves in the game, and then other people, we're just starting. But like Percy Harvin in Super Bowl 48, let's run the kickoff back for a touchdown and keep the momentum in our favor. Because I promise you that your 25-year-old self, however old that may be, is going to thank you for keeping the momentum going through the half and into the second half of this year. I really hope that all of you will have a safe and happy 4th of July. That's going to do it for this conversation. I hope that you all have a wonderful week. Enjoy the holiday weekend. If you get a long weekend, enjoy. Be safe if you're traveling. Safe travels. Remember to give grace, show love, and as always, stay stellar. Peace.